Okay, weekly video recap of the Comedy Accelerator Workshop, week 23, which was January 17th, 2026. Kind of an interesting variation on the workshop this week. We had to move to Saturday because the club has a private gig for this week and then next week on Sunday. And so we adjusted and we were going to go out to the patio at the Creek in the Cave, which is a second performance space. It's really nice. It's got a full stage and big open area, and a lot of comics hang out there while shows are going on inside. And they have a lot of shows out there too. But it's Austin, and you never know if it's going to be 70 degrees or 35 degrees. And it was 35 degrees, so we couldn't really use that outside space. So what we did when we got there, we were able to use the regular club area and talk about career for about 20 minutes. And then an open mic show came in that's regularly there at 4 or 4:30. I think their signups are at 4:15, so it was at 4:30. And they took over, and we just merged with them. So a lot of our comics from the workshop went up at the actual open mic, which was fun because usually it's just us, and you only get to perform for people who've already seen you or know you who are other comics. So that was really interesting. We get to see 6 or 7 people go up who have workshopped things and then actually get to do those in front of a decent open mic crowd. There's probably 25 people there that were civilians. And so it was fun to watch that stuff in action. And then afterwards, I gave people a little bit of feedback on each of their sets as quickly as I could in sort of the outside space. But everybody did good. Like, it's really interesting to watch people that sometimes struggled in the workshop because it's such a odd place to do stand-up with no real audience. It's very bare. It's very awkward in some ways. But once they got up in front of a real audience, you can see certain comics just feed off real life person energy. And so everything sort of picked up, and their sets went really well. So that was fun to watch. Always things to work on. That's me, though. I cannot not evaluate comedians. Every time I talk to them, or every time I watch them perform, or every time I hear their bits, my brain, because I'm half professor and half comedian, instantly goes in and starts taking apart what needs to be removed, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be added, or what needs to be amplified because it's working well. So I have an evaluator brain, and I'm always my brain just says, hey, let's make that better. Maybe it's because my old man was a home remodeler. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA. During the career section, we did get to some interesting stuff. Like, I think I've finally gotten a beat on the Austin scene a little bit better, and especially my relationship to it, which is a relationship to it. And I think there's things to learn from it. So I learned how to do stand-up. I started in 1987 at the height of the comedy boom. And there were tons of clubs, but they were all comedy, 3-act structure, nightclubs. The entire environment was set up for comedy. People came in and they knew that's exactly what they were paying for. There was an aura to it. The club itself was set up so the tables were all oriented around the stage. It was all preset. The sound was great. Everything had already been pre-worked out. And that's where I learned to do stand-up. And it's very entertainment-oriented. So they're trying to deliver in a 3-act club a really high-octane, high-impact stand-up show. Because that's what makes people come back, is if they go there and they have literally, a lot of the clubs say it's the funniest night of your life. And that's because if you really set a comedy environment correctly, it does amplify the experience of humor in ways that you don't really ever get anywhere else, other than like when you're drunk or when you're super tired. So the club is all set up, everybody's drinking, there's 15 minutes of a decent, competent person starting out, and then 30 minutes of usually a pretty good feature act that can just coast because they don't have to close the show when people start getting tired. They don't have to open the show. So the middle act just amplifies everything. And that's the sweet spot if you're really doing stand-up. Nobody wants to be the feature act, really, because it's not the glory spot and it's not the highest paid spot, but super important. So anyway, I learned how to do 3-act comedy. Get energy into the room. You're the performer. You're dominating the room. There's none of this there's no room for not being professional. You get fired if you're not a professional because there's always more people to do it. Austin has two separate scenes, neither of which I grew up with when I was learning stand-up. The first, and I've always had this problem with Austin, is that Austin is mostly an amateur scene. There are professionals that live here, but even them, they don't really come out on the scene and hang out anymore. It's dominated by people learning stand-up. It's dominating by people who aren't really getting paid or not, especially not doing it full time. There are some still full-time comics here, a lot of part-time comics here, professionals, but it's not really like LA or New York where you have tons of people who have industry experience, who are in the industry, and they're also doing stand-up. Most people here are just doing stand-up, or they're doing some other things like, podcasting or sketch or improv or things like that, but it's not what they're doing for a living. It's really hard to make a living in a place like Austin where you got to travel so far. And the gigs are hard to get, and it's very competitive to get them, and they don't pay that much. So it's a small scene. It's small ball. Like in baseball, there's the home run hitters teams, and that would be, the A clubs and the actual chain comedy clubs. But around here, it's small ball. You do what you can. You do a guerrilla approach to comedy, a lot of self-producing of shows, a lot of trading off of favors to get on shows. But it's not like there's industry out there or bookers or hirers or even corporate people that are watching you and thinking, oh, I can bring this person in and pay them real money to do a professional service for me. So it's all small ball. And I've never really worked that much in small ball. Again, that's not where I started. I started right into professional comedy. And I've been around Austin a lot, but I've never been particularly comfortable here. It just doesn't fit the way I do comedy. I'm way too professionalized. I'm always looking for money. I'm always looking for ways to move up, to ascend into an industry. The other thing that Austin now has is the comedy mothership, Joe Rogan, which merged with Kill Tony and created this massive internet-based scene because those guys are so popular on the internet. And there are people moving here from all over the country, all over the world, to either get on Kill Tony or learn how to do stand-up in Austin, because stand-up has, again, kind of exploded during the pandemic and a lot of clubs opened up. So there's a lot of stage time here. But here's the other thing that I don't really fit with, and I'm not sure how it fits professionally for the people around here. The Comedy Store is essentially, the Comedy Mothership is essentially modeled after the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. And I hung out there occasionally when I was there as a full-time writer and still writing for stand-ups. Mostly when a guy that I was writing for was working on stuff. I would go up there and hang out. There are a lot of different vibes in comedy, and you see them all over Los Angeles, but the Comedy Store is a particularly strong vibe. It's pretty dark. That's a lot of people working edgy comedy. A lot of great comics have come through there. It's got the most history of any place in Los Angeles for comedy. But it's a darker comedy. It's an edgier comedy. And it's like a New York City comedy club in LA. So a lot of dark comics, a lot of hardcore comics. It's that Legion of Skanks. It's that kind of sort of thing that you've seen sort of come up around Joe Rogan and then Tony Hinchcliffe. And it's a certain type of comedy, and I don't really do that kind of comedy either. I really like hardcore comedy. I will write hardcore comedy. I've never been able to make hardcore comedy work. And maybe, again, it's because I was such an entertainer, trained comedian, and then I just don't have the chops or the skills to do harsh stuff on stage and make it work. It's because I'm a bald, white dude who just comes off as harsh, even when I'm not harsh, because I'm very friendly on stage. But I really like every once in a while to try to make harsh material work. Like I have a joke that I did this week, and I tried it at an open mic, not an open mic, but a book show here in Austin. And it's built around this idea that I've pitched around for a long time, that when you're on writing staffs in LA and New York, the best comedy never gets out of the room because it's too toxic, it's too shocky, it's too hard-edged, it's too unmerciful. But it's great comedy. That's when comedians, the comedy writers, are writing for each other. And it's the most, just artful comedy, but it's also the things that make them laugh is when you go beyond what other people see as limits, moral limits, social limits, all these different things. And so I write that stuff. I've written for Hardcore Roast and things like that. Usually it gets pulled back and sanitized before it makes it to the world. So I tried a couple of those jokes this week, and if you follow the Facebook group, I post some of that stuff there. Most of that jokes that I post there as news jokes, which are samples for people to learn how to write news monologue or late night monologue, it's still watered down. It's still sanitized. Like I put most of the jokes on there are things that I could actually submit on a show. But I wrote a series of jokes about Trump, and Trump gets more and more toxic, so you want to write more and more toxic material in response to him. And one of the jokes was that I did at the show. I thought, and I told people, I said, I'm a comedy writer. I don't have any morals about anything. I really don't care about your politics right now. But if somebody steps up into the public, comedy writers, late night writers, joke writers write jokes about them. It doesn't matter who's in that spot. And so Trump is particularly potent. And I've gotten bored over the years writing Trump jokes. He's just in the news too much. He's too dominant. And plus, people like to push back. It's a more aggressive crowd that follows Trump. So it's just not worth it. But I still will print them. I'll still put them on my blog or on Threads or Blue Sky, or, I usually don't put them on Instagram, but they're definitely on the group. So one of the jokes was Trump is now giving out an explanation for why he has those bruises on the backs of his hands all the time. And it turns out 13-year-old girls are stronger than you think. So that was the punch, a little bit of a hardcore punch, although it's totally about hardcore at Trump. And I had 3 or 4 other tags that get even worse. Contact me and I'll tell you what they are. I don't like to say them in public just because you can't control it at that point, and I've not got that kind of career. If you're Louis C.K., or if you're a really dark comic, if you're in the Legion of Skanks, there's a whole armor around you, there's a whole community around you that likes to hear those kind of jokes. And I work with people, and I'm going to do more work with people who write that kind of stuff because I like it. I just don't want to have to be the person out there doing it at this point in my career because I'm not built for that. So that was fun, and but I did realize that those 2 scenes, the Austin small comedy scene, small ball, and the comedy mothership, like that's not my vibe. So even in LA, I would go and I would hang out and I would feel kind of dirty at the end of the night and like, wow, there's so much grousing and so much, sort of working the seedy underbelly. I feel like I'm in a, Barfly the movie or some kind of Bukowski book where people are just, hauling out the hardest things in life and just sort of turning them into comedy. Again, some great comics do it and I really like it, but it's not my vibe. And that's one of the 2 vibes in Austin now. So what's the challenge? To me, the challenge for the Comedy Accelerator is, can we set up a 3rd vibe? And maybe I'll call it mellow comedy or nice fest to counter program Skank Fest. Because I really, especially in public, like for public comedy, most people I don't think are coming out to hear hardcore stuff all night. Maybe if it's, it's a Doug Stanhope or somebody that books it that way, you can go see it. But I enjoy friendly comedy. Like even when I do crowd work, I'm friendly. And I have a little edge, a little bite sometimes, but it's soft. And I like to recover people really quickly. The comedy I enjoy the most is clever, super super witty, super fast, unexpected. It's thoughts that other people haven't had, and you have for them, and help by take it through it. I love the art of it, imagery and the writing and the literariness. And I even really, love intellectual comedy. So I don't know, I'm going to try to, get a 3rd scene going in Austin. And it's going to hopefully grow up out of the Comedy Accelerator, kind of the way I set up a vibe there, the way I invite comics in, and it's a development vibe. I don't care what you want to develop it in, like what your strand of comedy is. Just let's see how good we can get you to be so that you actually can make money easily because people are your fans. You can build a real fan base. That'd be super to see a 3rd, sort of comedy built up around Austin. And maybe because the local pros, like the road comic pros, don't really like to go out and hang out in the small scene. It's too many people. It's too claustrophobic. The comedy isn't always good. So, it can make for a long night if you try to go out. So people tend to come to do their sets and then they just leave, even if they're working on stuff. But I would love to create more of a hangout third scene here in Austin. It's friendlier. It's everybody trying to help each other. It's not backbitey, which can happen in small scenes because they're fighting over such small scraps. And it's not the sort of Rogan vibe. Those guys are really friendly to each other. I would, at some point, I'll head over there and, see who I know. But I don't think I'll ever really feel comfortable hanging out in that vibe. So let's see if we can get a third vibe. That's part of the idea of the Comedy Accelerator. This week was fun. Next week, we're going to do it again on Saturday. I think it'll be warm on Saturday this time, at least what it says on the news forecast at this point. So we'll go out back. We'll do the feedback system like I've built this. It's kind of developed where we do hyper feedback, where in the moment people go up and I do fixing. Like as a director, as a head writer, even as a stand-up coach or stand-up designer, like what can I fix in the moment? Can we do fast fixes? Get people from the things that are holding them back, because almost everybody has things in their stand-up. Unless you've been around for a long time and melted away all the dysfunction, you still have all this dysfunction in your stand-up that's holding you back from getting the laughs and being successful as you should be. So we've been doing quick fixes, and I think that we did it last time. I think it's going to work as a nice learning tool. So keep coming back to this. I'll keep putting these up. I'll do another short of some kind of material, although we didn't really work on it this week. Maybe I'll wait to do a short next week. But one way or another, if you're listening to this and you're in Austin, you want to come down, hang out. At some point, I'll create a live stream way of doing this, because I think it has super value for people to watch other people get feedback, and like instant feedback, like fast, potent, precise feedback about what they're doing wrong and what they can add in. So we'll figure out a live stream at some point. If anybody's interested in any of that stuff, contact me. We're also going to start doing a local, at least one, maybe two local versions of the Comedy Accelerator as a booked show. And again, I'm going to try to get the pros to come out and do sets. The road guys that live here and that basically nobody knows about anymore because they don't hang out on the scene and they're not Roganites. So keep hitting it back, and we will keep doing the comedy workshop, Accelerator workshop.